The last couple of days it's rained pretty hard, and the water around this pond was unbelievable. It began to make me question whether I even needed a liner. Well, it's subsided, but it's still about 5 inches of water, and that was literally overflowing the edges. So sadly there's not going to be any pond work for a day or two. Oh well, better weather on the horizon, hopefully. So it's a bit like filling a fish tank. We need a good amount of water in here to kick off, and I allow the water to work its way into the soil through capillary action, and that way I don't disturb the soil surface too much. So today is onion planting day, the first seeds of 2021, and we've got Zebrune, Elsa Craig, Bedfordshire Champion and Globo, large mild onion. And I'm going to plant them into normal seed trays, but I'm going to try 2 of these rather more deep seed trays and treat them rather like leeks. So allow them to grow for a little bit longer in this container. It should get some nice deep roots, and then I'll tease them out when the time's right by just soaking this in water and separating them from the soil. So that's the plan with these. So I'll get on and plant seeds, which I'm sure you've seen many times, and we'll get them underway. So nothing particularly unusual about my sowing technique. Some simple drills into the seed trays, and then just fairly dense scattering of the onion seed. And everyone has their own technique, but I found over the years that nothing really makes a huge difference as long as you're reasonably careful. So I'll label those up, and that's the new season underway with my onions, and they'll be the longest growing seeds that I sow, and they'll be followed fairly shortly by the peppers. So the polytunnel is my base for today. Makes a lot of sense. As you remember, I put this covering of compost on top of this bed ready for next season, and I've been astounded how everything's greened up. So these thyme plants were a little bit lackluster, and I buried a couple when I put the compost in, but they're doing really well. Even the smallest ones are absolutely covered in green leaves, and this one, which is a bit woody for sure, is greened up as well. So it just shows how a layer of compost like that feeds the plants. And my cuttings put into pots are just doing amazingly, as is the coriander. So that's got cracking as well. And I'm going to leave that to get a bit more bushy. I'm hoping that it's just not going to bolt, it's just going to keep filling out with leaves, so that'll make a nice plant for using in a culinary manner. So I'm going to wait for this rain to subside. It's pretty wet out there. What I did notice was that the geraniums that we brought in, they've also really greened up. There's no doubt about it, bringing them in here, it's got its risks. You have to keep watering them, but it certainly makes sure that they get a good start in the next season. Well, the rain's been pretty torrential this morning, and it makes it quite difficult this time of year when it's just so thoroughly wet. how you get onto the plot and do the things you need to do, it's a real challenge. This is video number 104 and is a year since I started the channel, and these winter months, they're certainly some of the hardest. When you can't get on the ground, it's looking for things to do that can make the difference later on. And whilst that was a marathon session of preparing these root trainers, it's going to help when the weather's better to speed things on. Now, this is my year of deep root trainers. The theme is the deeper the roots, the better the plant. And that's my experience with these. That extra root space results in a much healthier plant. They don't dry out as quickly because there's more soil in there. They're not restricted because of the root space. And whilst these are quite delicate and they do break, they also are quite rigid. The last one, as you push it in, puts them under pressure, and it makes for a really rigid container. It's got holes on the bottom, of course, and they just fold together like a clamshell, and they really are excellent. So I'm going to do as much this year as I possibly can into root trainers. That's seeds and potting on. These come in two sizes. This is a shallow one. I have to say, it almost defeats the object having them this shallow. So if you're buying these, I would recommend you go for as deep as you can go. And over the years, and some of these are 5-6 years old, they do deteriorate, they break, and it's excuse me, a bit of a job getting them back together. But if you're careful, you can put them under pressure and they are rigid. So there we are. That's a really good job done for this part of the year in preparation for the next year. Now, part of my kit for growing are these cloches. Again, I've had these years. Originally they came from a DIY outlet, and they do need cleaning up each year, but they're fantastic for that extra bit of protection, keeping moisture in and keeping everything warm when it's a bit cooler. So these are really excellent cloches, and I'll be using those again this year. For now, I'm just going to put them down there. And the other thing I invested in last year, which I'll be using again this year, is these really deep root trays. And I noticed today that they've got some slugs and snails in, so I'm going to get those out now and get them ready. So there's 2 of these here, and they were a bit of a trial last year, but they worked extremely well. They can be a bit of a challenge to get apart. There we go. Trying to get the slugs out. If you leave any of these slugs or snails in these, then you harbour them for the winter, and they'll become your worst nightmare in the spring when they start eating your seedlings. So it's really important that you get them all out, and get them out of the polytunnel too. There we go. Now, these cloche or covers were designed specifically for the root trainers, and they're okay. They're not brilliant, because invariably the roots get established in these trainers and the plants get height really quickly, and these slot over the trainers and only leave about 1 inch. So they're not great, but they do help the starting process. So I'll keep those to hand, make sure we've got no pests in them. Looking okay. So there's 6 there, which will go over 6 of these. Now when I get this bed underway, one of the things I like to do is put the cloches over the top, but they sag in the middle. So I made these pegs last year and I'll be using those again. So they're ready. And I do use these large trays because when you water the plants, they hold the water. So if you get any plants that are a bit dry, then they can sit in a little bit of water for a bit longer, and that helps the process. So move those trays underneath. And there we are. Good step forward towards next season. Well, there's a break in the rain for a few minutes. I'm going to make this wet weather work for me the best I can. I can't get on the ground up there, but here where I've always done the composting, the ground's a little bit more tolerant and not that important. So I'm going to use the wet weather, the rain, to clean a lot of these trays that I use. So typically that's what they look like after the season. Quite a bit of mud and mess in them, and this one's been out in the rain for a day or two, so it really clears them off, and then I can do a last minute wipe down. So I'm going to spread these out, and hopefully the rain will do some work for me. And it's also a good time just to start clearing here, because the composting's going to start in earnest very soon. Well, these trays are going to stay out in the rain now, and that'll just give them a bit of a wash up. I've turned this barrel over because it was just filling up all the time, so it's going to get cleaned off. And I think we're heading for carrots or something in that next season. And my compost area is a bog, but this is one area where it doesn't really matter too much, because once I start bringing in the compost, you just get a layer of dry material over the top, so it'll be fine. I've got quite a lot of rubbish to get rid of, and my pots are in buckets. They'll fill up with water or they'll wash out, and this little area, my seed trays, that's going to wash over a bit as well. And then I'll have another crack at all this a bit later on, but it feels like I'm getting a bit sorted, and I've put this off all season, and now is the time to make the most of it. I need to move this bit of material out. I think I'm just going to add it to the continuing pile from my groundworks, and then all this will be used to continue the levelling process. Potato pots sitting dormant, ready for the warmer weather. Just spotted another hanging basket which I need to get out. So I think that's me for today from a wet, muddy South Wales. I do hope you enjoyed the video today. If you did, click the subscribe button, click the like button, and if you want updates from me each time I upload a video, click the bell and select all. I do hope you have a great day.
Diolch yn fawr.